Quickly attach them.
And I think we are live. Welcome, everybody. I am here with Paul from Understanding Conspiracy and Shelly from There's No Place Like Home. And I have no idea what we're going to discuss today, but we're going to have fun while we do it. So, welcome. And if you're on here, please leave a comment and let us know that you're here so we can say hey to you. I'd like this to be interactive as much as possible. So if you've got a question, like put it in all caps or something so I can see it. If we get really, really busy, then it can be, hi Tracy. It might get, I might have trouble keeping up, but I'll try. All of my children are gone, so I have nobody to moderate. So if there's a creepo in the comment or something in the comments, let me know, and we'll try to keep this under some kind of control. Maybe. Welcome,
have
guys.
fun with that.
Yeah, have fun with that. I think everybody knows you guys, but please do introduce yourselves.
Oh, shall I go first?
Yeah.
Good.
Sure. Okay. I'm Paul, and I run the YouTube channel Understanding Conspiracy. I am primarily known as the guy who talks about the Nephilim looking like clowns, but I dip my toes in a bit of everything here and there to do with conspiracy. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
And I'm Shelly. Sorry if you see me jostling this around. I'm just trying to hear better. I'm Shelly. I have the YouTube channel, There's No Place Like Home. And my most popular series is the Question the Narrative series, in which that is exactly what I do. I question the narrative, all things. And I'm really looking forward to our chat tonight.
Okay. And I am Donita, the tin hat wearing 5th generation Oklahoma Panhandle pioneer. And no, I'm not going to wear it the whole time, but hey, you know that I've got this snazzy, fancy tin hat, and it's just important. Some people just don't like my tin hat, and it's like, anyway, I'm ready to irritate some people. You guys have had some interesting comment section stuff going on in your comments here lately. I'm not big enough for people to get that. Thank you, Tracy. I'm not big enough to have those kinds of comments yet, so I'll let you guys kind of explain what some of your comments are. And
Well, I have recently been looking into something called preterism, and it just intrigues me because the first time that I heard about it was with the whole short season aspect. I actually heard about preterism for the first time on Exploring Tartaria. And so recently it's been picking up traction, and I thought, okay, I'm going to look into this. But then right the night before I was going to record a video about it, some other channels had done very critical videos about it, and that really got people riled up by the time that I posted my video, because I was coming from the complete opposite end. I was like, hey, you have to look at this objectively, don't go into it right away with the idea that it's wrong. So I was getting comments saying that, like, I was of the devil, or I was being led by Satan. And they were saying that preterism is of the devil, or what is it, the doctrine of demons. So I've been called, and other videos too, I've been called a shill. I was just called a shill again last night, and I'm like, my 11 children would find that hilarious. And
Shelly, Shelly. I saw that one. Shelly.
Yeah, and it's crazy because one thing that I said is, first of all, these are all supposedly believers commenting like this. And then second of all, I always say, those who trust the mainstream narrative, they're pretty good about staying together when they are supporting a common view. And unfortunately, those of us who do question the narrative, some people who are even supposedly on our side really just come at you and are just cutthroat. And it becomes very hard to distinguish between people who genuinely are commenting and then those who are just trolls. It's just hard to tell.
Yeah.
I have the same issue, Shelly. You are not alone. Okay, this is a. I mean, when I only started talking about this topic quite late to the game, to be honest. I made a video, maybe. I think I've got it up here on my phone. It was, I forgot the year and the month this was. 29th of September is when I made my first video on this. And since then, it's just been, I've just rolled with it because it's just one connection after another. It's one of those topics which is just so all encompassing. And as somebody who's been researching conspiracy theories for like over a decade, it just keeps making more and more sense the more I apply this lens over everything else that we've been researching for years, you know? So I just couldn't leave it alone because, I've been thinking about this for a few years. Exploring Tartaria was, again, the main channel I first saw, which made me think, what is this? Like, what is she saying? Like, this is insane, you know? But there's so much there, and I just sat on it for like 3 years, just stewing in my brain, trying to figure it all out, you know. And when I did speak up a year ago, yeah, it's just been one accusation of heresy after another. It's really shown me a lot about the Christian culture that I just did not know existed. I didn't understand how divided it truly was. I thought, you know, one glove fits all for Christianity was pretty much it. I was quite naive, I suppose, because I wasn't raised in a church, and I suppose I've never really been in that world. But now I've become far more knowledgeable on the factions of Christianity that truly do exist that I just was not aware of. I had an amillennial today actually message me, funnily enough, and it's just these outright factual comments they give you as this like they know exactly how everything is type of attitude. You know, the 1,000-year reign of Christ hasn't happened; it's happening. It isn't a literal reign of Christ on earth. Jesus is reigning now in heaven. 1,000 signifies a large number. When Jesus returns, then comes the end for the earth as it is now. We will have a new heaven and earth. What matters now is whether a person repents and believes the gospel. And that's it, just full stop, done. So I commented back, so you're an amillennialist then? That's what you've just given me, the perfect amillennialist summary of that worldview. And I don't know how to respond to these people. It's like, well, what about Revelation 7? You have missed out the short season there. You've just you've breezed over that section of the book where it says after the millennial reign, there is a short season where Satan deceives all the nations. What you've just told me is that the millennial kingdom isn't physical. It's just kind of this indeterminate amount of time because 1,000 years doesn't exist as 1,000 years. And then suddenly New Jerusalem and heaven and earth will just happen. And that's it. That's just what you believe, because that's not what the book says. And I keep giving these kind of responses to people, and it's just more and more like, no, you're just a shill. Clearly, you're just a shill out there to deceive. And this is the great deception. What you're doing is propagating the great deception. And all I can think is, this is the great deception. 20 people on YouTube theorizing and just thinking out loud about a concept. This is it. And it's like, if there's anything's going to be a great deception, it's probably what the majority of Christians believe, and it is this bizarre futurist doctrine where 1 week is somehow 2,000 years. You know, I can't square it in my mind how they can make sense of that. But for many years, I was on board with their worldview, and now I've just questioned the narrative a little bit. Yeah, the backlash has been wild, absolutely wild.
Yeah, and what really gets me is, like you were saying, with how definitively they are so 100% sure that they are right. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't think that when it comes to eschatology, I'm not ever going to get there, because there is always the possibility that you're wrong, because eschatology is enigmatic. And I was saying the other day to Donita, I think that, you know, it really helps people to actually get into God's word with how enigmatic it is. And with me, I have been reading the word more than I ever have, because I have been so into eschatology lately. And so for me to say, okay, that's it, I have it all figured out, when millions and millions of people who have studied far longer than I have still don't agree, you know, I just think that we need to be careful to not say, okay, we have it all figured out, and then not leave room for the possibility, even if it's a slight possibility, you know, that we could be wrong. And so that's the thing that I try to get across on my channel, is just, you know what, it's good to be confident in what you believe. Absolutely, we should be confident in the gospel. Absolutely. But when it comes to eschatology, there are so many different ways that you can look at it. And we just need to be aware of that and not come at each other just because someone else believes something different. The one thing that we need to keep intact, that we need to make sure we still have in common with everyone, is just the gospel. That is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. I first of all, I find it funny every time, Paul, that you said you've been in this for decades. I have to giggle because I've been a conspiracy theorist pretty much all my life, and definitely since the 90s, really getting through things. So I'm like, man, that is just so cute.
Oh no, I say a decade. It's literally a decade. I started my
Literally
channel
a decade.
in
Okay.
2014. Yeah, just one decade. But I guess I started in 2011, but the channel began in 2014. So it has for me been just one decade. And
Yeah.
I only say one decade. I know I'm quite young. I'm almost 32. You know, I'm not. I'm a
Yes,
baby.
yes.
I'm a baby. I
He's
know.
a baby.
Yeah. I know.
And but then when it comes to being a conspiracy theorist, I'm the baby because I first really started getting into this stuff in 2017. So
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when the Lord revealed biblical cosmology to us after we had the huge fires. And
Yeah.
we're in the area where the big Texas fires have been lately. Well, in 2017, which hopefully I won't get in trouble from YouTube. We're just joking around here, okay? We're not serious about any of this right now. Anyway, in 2016, our Oklahoma senator introduced a bill for the evil doers, those, things the kitties like to follow around and stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and then 2017, in the spring of 2017, after millions of acres had been burned, very weirdly, trees and fence posts burning from the inside out in 2017. And it was millions of acres between Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And he came out and talked to us and told us how, sorry he was that this had happened and that he was going to try to get us, federal help and all of that. And yeah. So anyway, what's going on today and what happened then? But that just really because we live on the Great Plains and everything's pretty flat out here anyway. But once that burned off all the extra brush and stuff, my husband and I just stood out on our hill and we were like, oh my goodness, it's flat. And I mean, we can see 75 miles at least. That's not supposed to be possible. So, very interesting. Yes, from the inside out, we had cottonwood trees exploding that you didn't even realize were burning, and it burned for a good hour. So, our oldest daughter, which I think is older than you, Paul, she actually got video of them escaping. I was at home at the time, and so if you guys want to see that, go over to Catherine White's channel and go down to 2017 on there, and you can see it. I can't watch it without tearing up at this point, but anyway, yeah. I know who you're talking about on the eschatology and the preterism thing. And we have talked to them. I have interviewed his wife, and he literally did start that video saying that preterism is of the devil and anybody who believes in it is going down. And yeah, I don't know if it's age or if he's been hassled. Unfortunately, I wasn't raised in the church either. But I was saved at a young age at a vacation Bible school, but I wasn't raised in it at all. And people, the attitudes that the church members are mean. They will literally eat their own. And boy, you run into something that is the least bit uncomfortable for them. And they will, woof, they can get mean. And I've seen it in the churches. I've seen it in our community, and boy, online. And honestly, there's so much going on right now. So much that is being revealed to us. I mean, I kind of feel like we are in the great deception. Just period. We're in a great deception. That everybody is realizing that they have been lied to about so many things. And it just people get that cognitive dissonance, I think, and you just don't even know where to go with it sometimes, and then people on both sides of whatever it is in the conspiracy theories tend to get very obnoxious about what they believe, and
I think with especially with Christianity, I've been trying to think about this. Why is it the Christians are so visceral in the reactions to this specific theory? And again, because I have to try and put myself in their position because I'm out of it. I don't know what it's like to be raised with a specific doctrinal dogma that you were raised with, whatever that is, dispensationalism or preterism, amillennialism. I'm sure there's many denominations, thousands of denominations out there with different ways of doing this, And I think Christ preaches that it's truth. That's what Christianity purports to have, the truth. So I think a lot of Christians identify with their beliefs as I already know the full truth and nobody can deceive me otherwise because I have Christ type of attitude. So when someone like me or Shelly comes along and says, well, I think we may be completely wrong about where we are in the timeline, I think they take that as a real personal attack on their foundations in a way where it's kind of like, no, I know the truth. My pastor wouldn't lie to me. Why? They know the truth. I've been reading the Bible more than you. You're just a 20-year-old child. What do you know? I know way more than you about the Bible, and you're just some guy on YouTube. My preacher knows more than this, and it's kind of he's a godly man who's. And they kind of have all this preconceived, deep-rooted dogma in them that I cannot be deceived because I have Christ, and it's kind of actually we've all been deceived regardless of whether we all have Christ or not, and that is how the devil would do it. He would let you believe you know the truth. That's how it works. He would let you have Christianity. He wouldn't get rid of it. He would just throw you off by 1 degree, and that over time is a huge deviation from the truth, and that's all he needed to do. And that's kind of what I feel has happened, why I feel Christians are the most vitriolic. And that's just the followers of particular churches. Leaders, though, they are way worse because they have written books about the futurist eschatology. They have preached to thousands of people over many years a specific doctrine, and their pride is not going to allow them to think that they have been deceived or they're wrong about something. They're not going to suddenly backtrack on the 20 books they've written that's on their bookshelf behind them. They need to maintain, and sadly, it's money. They've made a lot of money selling one particular idea, and they can't lose. They're not going to let go of that so easily. And
they've been so overeducated. I mean, you would have eschatology would be part of Bible study, part of Sunday school or whatever, and you wouldn't be teaching just one way. This is what Revelation means. You would go through the book of Revelation and you would share. Some people think this means this. Some people think this means this. I believe it means this because of this. I mean, that makes sense to me. I understand you teaching what you believe to your flock, but yeah, I'm so anti-dogmatic. There's very, very few things that I will be dogmatic about. And that's part of the reason, because people get stuck in that and their ego gets tied up in it. And we need to be very careful with that, because the grieving the Holy Spirit, when you start saying, I'm not going to believe this because of principle, not because of facts that I'm presented or the word of God, then and anybody else who believes it is going to the devil or whatever, that's problematic. I have issues there.
Yeah. And I think it's a key to remember that Christian tradition is not always the same thing as what the Bible actually says. And you can find that in that different denominations have different Christian traditions. But since the people are brought up in those Christian tradition, they equate it with being exactly what the Bible says. And that's another reason that like you were saying, people just accept what their pastors say without actually reading it for themselves. And very often when they do read it for themselves, they already have what their pastor said in their mind. So they go into reading the Bible with preconceived notions. They already know what it is that they're supposed to think. So they're not really reading it with what we'll say is a blank slate, with just what does this specifically say. And that is actually something that I tried before I was born again. I was seeking for quite a bit of time, and I was still attending church where I grew up at. And I remember asking the pastor a question that I had about Genesis. And I believe that it was because there are basically what sounds like two creation accounts, one in Genesis 1 and one in Genesis 2. So I had a question about that, and I asked the pastor about it, and his wife was standing with him, and she said to me, well, the Bible's not meant to be read that way. And I remember, and that was like my first clue that it was time to leave that church, because how else should it be read? What was it written for if we're not to be read it? There's a certain way that you're supposed to read it. When I read a book, I just pick it up and read it. I don't think that there's a certain outline that you have to follow, so and that is unfortunately that a lot of Christians are okay with that. They're okay with just accepting that we're supposed to look at things this way, and this is the way it is because I learned this when I went to seminary. So,
Well, and it's easier that way.
yeah,
It's just easier that way. As far as I'm concerned, the enemy has us all so busy. That we can't see straight. Everybody is so busy and so stressed out with everything that's going on that who wants to take the time? I don't necessarily want to take the time all the time. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy the research and the study, but sometimes I would rather just go on about my business and enjoy ignorance, but I can't. That's not how God's called me to do. And maybe he's called some people to do it that way. If that's how God's calling you, just to concentrate on what you're doing at the moment. And I have no doubt that he does some people like that. If you've got a bunch of little children, you may need to just concentrate on them right now. So, and that's okay. But don't be going on people's YouTube channels and making nasty comments because God has called you to concentrate on something different, and I love the castle thing that Ken Ham had whenever he first started, the Answers in Genesis ministry, and the Christians and then the humanists, and the Christians are shooting at each other and the humanists are shooting at our foundation. And it's like, yeah, guys, we need to get back down to the foundation, and we need to realize we're all on the same side.
exactly. And that's why I said, Christ, he wanted us to be united, not divided. It's so much easier for the enemy to get at us, like the illustration said. If we are constantly at each other's throats, then we're not paying attention to what they're doing. And then on top of that, they're busily chipping away at us while we're also chipping away at each other. So
and there is something to be said about the iron and Jesus coming and saying that he did come to, cause strife, not to cause peace. I mean, he did that specifically. And, we are supposed to be encouraging each other to grow. I mean, that's part of questioning the narrative and having these discussions. Because I'm sure, I keep telling everybody, I don't expect to agree with everybody else or everybody else to agree with me, because I don't even agree with myself on a regular basis. Yeah. So, having us have different opinions and being on different perspectives as we're doing this research is good. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I would say though, sorry, Shelly. Go ahead. I interrupted
you. I would have never thought of the research into the clowns. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I would have never thought. If God hadn't put us on different different paths and different perspectives, you're on something specific there that is really, amazing.
I've been swimming in clowns today. I've been writing the final chapters of my book, and I spent like 4 hours today just researching really really dark stuff about the Hat Man, and yeah, I mean, I didn't think I'd be talking about clowns either. I never thought I would end up being the guy talking about clowns. That was not my plan in life at all. But it's just one of those things where it's kind of, you see something, you have to say something, and that's kind of exactly the same philosophy I'm doing with this theory as well. With obviously the Millennial Kingdom, I've seen some things. I'm like, okay, I've got to kind of talk about this. And on the Millennial Kingdom thing, I would say in focus on the positive. I would say 98% of the time, people are actually very receptive to the idea in the comments. It's mainly all positive. Most of the comments I get are like, I've never heard of this before. Like, my brain has been tickled. I've literally never even considered this angle. It's kind of why, and the question that you can see the cogs turning as well in the comments. It's kind of like, why has no one mentioned this? Like, why do I not know about the little season? You can tell and these neurons are starting to fire, and it's kind of, this makes a lot of sense. Suddenly, most people are going down that route. The only ones who are really vitriolic and shill hunting and pointing fingers are the one who have somehow invested into the idea more so than it's simply just being a concept or an idea. They've identified, and like I said, I don't need to merged it with their ego in some way and made it a part of who they are. But I would say that most people are actually very receptive to the idea, and I'm actually excited to see the mass growth of this concept and what it's going to do for Christendom in the future. I think we needed this. I think Christianity as a whole, as a community, needed a unifying idea, because there's so much. Because when you get to like pre-trib, post-trib, or just the premillennialism futurist doctrine, it is so divisive because there's always a new sign that matches some symbol somewhere in Revelation, always happening every year, and the day always comes and passes, nothing happens. We look more and more stupid, more people fall away, more people lose their faith, then someone else sets another date, and then books get written about that, and hype gets made up about that. It's just constant up and down roller coaster, all in this idea of we're supposed to look for the signs and the times, and it's kind of, if we're past all of that, that is a weight off the minds of so many people in so many ways as well. And I do feel like we can calm down and really focus on what we need to do during this time if we are in the little season, rather than always in fear of the coming end. And even they call it the end times. And if they truly believe what the Bible's saying and the doctrine that they have of futurism, it's not the end times from their perspective. It's the beginning of the millennial reign, right? So why do they keep calling it the end times? Technically, our new perspective here is the end times. So I don't know, I just thought I'd throw that out there, but what I'm trying to say is it's been majority positive, I would say, and I'm sure Shelly can attest to that as well.
Yeah, it's been the same. It is mainly positive commenters. For me, as a homeschool mom, I can tell by the comments if someone was not paying attention while they were watching the video, or if they weren't really listening, because they will comment something exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. And I think those are the ones that, even though I have so many great comments, they do get me riled up, and I try not to let them get me riled up. But again, it's the homeschool mom in me. I'm like, weren't you listening? Did you hear anything that I said? So that's, oh my gosh, Donita knows, because I'm always talking to her about it.
Was great.
And I'm like,
I was totally egging her on her mom rant. Yeah, totally egging her on the mom rant. It's like, I know. Shelly, you've got every right in the world to give a good mom rant to these people. And, she's like, I'm going to lose half my subscribers. So, yeah, I definitely think it's a majority that are much more open. We've had people that have deconstructed from the church, and there's a big part of me that feels like that's not a bad thing. That we do need to distance ourselves from some of that dogma and the preconceived notions and stuff. And we need to get back to what the word actually says, what was actually going on that we know of, and, get back down to the basics of things and just study whether we think most or all of it is already done or not, we need to continue to study. Like Shelly said, we're bound to be wrong about something. I mean, we are. None of us are going to be 100% right. There were things that Jesus even said he didn't know. So, and like my oldest says, it's battle plans. Everybody's not supposed to know about it, So, yeah, definitely.
Just to inject this, just today actually, Alpha Talks, Vitalia Alpha Talks, he covers this subject quite a lot as well. Me and him and Joe from JT Follows JC YouTube, I've talked with about this too, and he's also kind of getting into the scene of discussing this topic. Well, the Vitally sent us both a message showing the Geneva Bible of 1599. Have you heard about this yet? This is kind of, it seems like right now everybody's talking about this just in the past day. My Telegram group, it's been posted everywhere, and it's like, have you seen this Geneva Bible with the commentary next to all the things?
Yeah.
And it's written in 1599. I think it says next to the verse where it says, Jesus says, these things must shortly come to pass, this generation will not pass away. In the little side note, it says 50 years later is when he came back. It's kind of, what? Why is this in this book? And how does this guy know this? And it shows that the 1,000 years began, in was it 1070 or something, as around that time zone, maybe 1080 or something, and then it ended in 1040 or something like that. And he's got you read these annotations here.
And saying that Satan was released during the reign of a certain pope.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I've been doing some research and going into that. I actually found the PDF of the Geneva Bible with the commentary in it, and I posted it in my Telegram channel. I might have posted it in your Telegram channel too, Paul. I can't remember, but that way everybody can look it up. Everybody can see what was written, but it was given specifics. And so I started looking into, okay, what is happening? Of course, I'm trying to figure out the timeline and where we actually are in the timeline. So the Geneva Bible, they say it was written in 15 whatever, but we still had I's and J's on the 15 stuff. So was it really written in 500 something, and then the commentary written after Satan was released, is kind of where I'm thinking. I don't know.
Those are the right thoughts to have, because again, we don't really know the timeline, and the more you look into it, the more complicated it gets.
Yeah.
And we realize whoever wrote the history that we do have, I think it's Scaligerian, people call it, Joseph Scaliger, I think is the guy who we equate to writing our chronology as we know it. What he wrote is just nonsense when you actually start scratching under the surface, and you realize, we really don't know how long we've been in a little season, if we are in one. We don't know if it began in the 1800s, in maybe the mid 1700s. Was it in the 1600s, or was it the 1500s exactly after the fall of Rome 1,000 years from 500? We don't read. There's loads of indication that it could be any of those times when this began, or when the millennial reign ended, because there's a certain events that have been documented which we can conflate with Satan being released. The mud flood is a big example in the Tartarian thought processes. I'm up for anything. I'm up for any information at all.
Yeah.
We haven't got it figured out, and this is a team effort. We are trying to iron out this process, but that's the thing. We're not saying we have all the answers. We never said we did. We're just saying there's clearly something wrong with what we have been told.
Well, and that's where looking at the different eschatology helps. I married a preacher's son, and my father-in-law taught a historical perspective on the book of Revelation. So he believed the dark ages were the millennial reign, and he believed Jesus was reigning in heaven during that time. And I've got a different perspective, and I really wonder, with all of the evidence that we're seeing now, what he would think about it. You know what I'm saying? But it's obviously, and that was an old eschatological, I'm Oklahoman. So their church had that from the 1800s, at least, that idea. So it wasn't anything new that he came up with on his own or anything. But I'm sitting here, okay, I really think there was some time period that was added. And one of my big things is I've been doing historical costuming, and whenever you go back, it's like people wore nothing but robes and sandals for thousands and thousands of years, and all of the sudden they invented buttons and buckles. And you can say that about everything. You had this big explosion of technology just all of the sudden happen, and I'm like, seriously? No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, they were definitely, I believe they were more advanced than what we give them credit for. And actually, going back to the Geneva Bible, because someone had sent me screenshots of it. I don't think she sent me the actual PDF, but someone emailed me screenshots. And do you remember also when I had someone sent me the Book of the Martyrs that said the year that Satan was released too? And I find all of these things so interesting. And it's like so many different pieces of the puzzle that are coming together. But I also think we also have to be very cautious because we don't know who wrote the notes in the side of the Bible. You know what I mean? Like, I write notes in the side of my Bible. And so if someone would find my Bible, you know, 300 years from now, would they take it as absolute truth? What my opinion is that I'm writing in the side. And I'm not trying to negate what that says with the Geneva Bible. And I'm not even just talking about that. I'm talking about different pieces of evidence that come out like that. But we need to be cautious not to think that every single thing that we find is going to be absolutely true, because a lot of times they were just like us, trying to figure things out and coming up with their own hypotheses. So that's really, I mean, and that's part of the fun part though, is because if we already knew all the answers, what would we do with our time? You know?
Exactly.
But
Well, and we need to do the Bible that way too, because there are some scriptures in the Bible. I love the way Gary Wayne and Michael Heiser said, there's no smoking gun scripture for certain things, and people will tend to take one scripture in the New Testament that really has no background that we know of anywhere else in scripture, and they try to make it a dogmatic principle. And it's like, give me the context that you're trying to do this with. And I think we need to be careful, because depending on where you're at in your life and your relationship with him, we can all end up having different perspectives of the scripture and different applications of the scripture in our lives. So, and we need to remember that the scripture is not three-dimensional. It's beyond us, and we need to keep that in thought too.
Mm-hmm. What you were saying there, Shelly, as well about that this could have just been anybody making notes here, trying to piece it together themselves in this time period. But I think we could take that in context what you said there, and it at least shows to us that these aren't new ideas that we're talking about today.
Yes.
And this is the argument we could get against us, like, this is just nonsense. This has come out of nowhere all of a sudden, and clearly that's because it's controlled opposition or something like that. And it's I think this shows actually maybe a predominant thought for a long time may have been the little seasonist viewpoint, shall we say. And I made a video a while ago that the Jesus movement of the 60s and 70s, which was like a counter revolution to the counter revolution, was the injection of this futurist doctrine. Obviously it was under the mask of love for Jesus and Christianity, but in the back door of that movement, they slipped in the futurist dispensationalist worldview, and that became the standard for most American churches from that point forward. Now, it's not to say that, no one had ever thought about that before. They had, but it had been solidified as the only doctrine the 501c3 churches are going to get and preach from now on. And it was in that moment, as a injected counter movement to the acid 60s counterculture. It was a very odd time from what I can see, and that's when those young Jesus freaks, shall we call them, grew up to become church leaders, and they carried on that doctrine of futurism into the present day as we see it today. But then again, from that I theorize maybe there was a lot of churches prior to this who probably didn't even think about it like that. They probably were more into the idea we probably are past the millennial reign, or maybe they had more of an amillennialist viewpoint prior to that. But what we have today wasn't necessarily always the mainstream dogma, is what we're trying to say. Because these notes in the side of this book show that other people in the past were thinking, yeah, of course we're in the little season. Like, that just makes sense, right? So I guess we can take it at least as that, if
Oh
not
yeah.
a fact, just because it's written in the side of a particular Bible, maybe. Maybe that's just one way
Yeah,
to
and
look at it.
I was actually thinking about your video about the Jesus movement, and I mentioned it in one of my recent videos. And, up until about 1900 or so, it was the early 1900s when the Schofield Bible was written. And so up until that point, the main eschatological view was historicism in the Christian community. And it was around early 1900s that Schofield, I don't remember his first name, he came up with the Schofield Bible, and that was the one that primarily really started teaching futurism. And so a lot of futurists nowadays will automatically point back to the Schofield Bible, like some people point back to the King James as being the only one that is 100% correct, and I'm probably going to get some mean chats now from that.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, and so that's the thing, is that so it started in the early 1900s with the Schofield Bible. Not to say that they had never thought about it before, but that really took hold. And then, fast forward to, like you said, around the 60s or 70s, when this Jesus movement started, then they started using that Schofield Bible, and then it just exploded. So we'll say that as of right now, futurism seems to have the corner. What is it called? The corner of the market, corner on the market. I don't know, but they have like the main view of especially evangelical Christianity right now. But it is a relatively recent,
When
thought
I
process.
look at what's popular from our viewpoint, from a short season viewpoint, if you look what's popular and what gets promoted the most, what's on TBN and stuff, wouldn't it be like the enemy to promote that kind of stuff and allow that kind of stuff to get popular, to promote the books? And I enjoyed the books, the Left Behind series, but I read them knowing that was not the case. I just enjoyed them as a good biblically based fiction,
And I believed them because I read them as a baby Christian. And so everything is like hyper literal in that series. So then as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. So it really did take me a while to come out of that. But because I was not actually brought up on it, I didn't become a Christian until my early 30s. So when I did read it, I still didn't have that upbringing of futurism. So reading that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how it really is. And now I'm like, okay, maybe not. But it was, an interesting book series. But I know now that, all right, this is probably not what it actually was.
See, we never had anything like that in the UK. I've heard about this Left Behind series and how there's like a generation kind of raised on this story. And I'd have no idea what you're talking about. I literally have no idea what this is. What is this? Can you just, for someone like me or maybe my UK listeners, the 9% I have from my stats I've seen, what is this?
It's the biblical Harry Potter of the Americans.
So it's basically taking a very, very literal view. It starts out with the rapture, with the pre-trib rapture, and all of a sudden all of these people are just gone. And and then it just goes through the 7-year tribulation.
The main characters are left behind.
Yeah, so the main characters are left behind, and some of them become believers after they were left behind. They realized, oh my gosh, my wife was right all this time, or just things like that. And it follows their separate stories, and it's just a very, very, very literal interpretation of the tribulation and what, when it says things about what were the creatures that have the locusts with the faces like, what was it, horses, Donita, do you remember? In Revelation? Well, it was actually that, like, so everything that is in Revelation, they just take it's not symbolic at all, it's just literal. Absolutely literal. And that's what the whole series
they brought in an actual Antichrist, an actual image that the Antichrist he actually got like
Sign.
shot in the head or something, and
Yeah.
the whole kit and caboodle.
And
Yeah,
like when in Revelation where it says that the believers are sealed, like they can see actual seals on
it's
when
like
they
14 books in the series. I mean,
yeah.
it's a big,
I mean,
yeah,
it's a great fiction series to read
yeah,
if you realize that it's fiction.
yeah.
So, you know, it's inspired by the Bible. We can say that. It is, you know, there are lots of
Right.
movies that are like based on whatever and they aren't really true to the actual story. And I think this is one of those cases.
It sounds like perfect propaganda for if we were in the little season, to be honest, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
it was promoted every bit that way. It was promoted because Christians, the conservative Christians here in the United States, they would not touch Harry Potter. Okay, with a 10-foot pole. If you read Harry Potter or watch any of the movies, you're definitely going to the devil. But these Left Behind books were very, very, very popular. So yeah, that's why I compare it to that. I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm just an Okie out here. I'm a cowgirl out in the middle of nowhere. So can't imagine living on an island like you guys do.
But there's actually a Left Behind series for children too.
Mm-hmm.
So they have one written specifically also for children. And you're right about the propaganda because there were the old movies made, were the ones with Kirk Cameron made maybe in the 90s or something. And then they recently did a more like contemporary version of Left Behind with Nicolas Cage. That one didn't really it didn't really emphasize so much the Christianity aspect of it, but it was a great way to get the secular world to learn about the rapture. So if you're thinking about propaganda, yeah, that would have been definitely a great tool in the toolbox.
Well, this is I kind of said this in a lot of videos, but it seems like if I was Satan trying to deceive the nations of the little season to not know they are in the little season, you would make Christianity seem strong and powerful and growing and bigger than ever. And you have mega churches, don't you? You've got on the TV, you have the gospel being preached on television, and sure the gospel, sure, but they always, like I said, it's that 1% of a lie that they've kind of slipped in. And by all accounts, you look at Christianity, it seems like a huge thing. It seems like it's unbeatable and enormous and growing, right? It's one of the fastest growing religions type of thing. It's always spreading to new areas, and people are evangelizing new tribes that have never even heard of Christ before. And on the surface, it seems so strong and but if the foundation is completely off, if it's all based on this lie,
And at the same time, there's all this decisiveness. I mean, in the 1880s, you have this split of so many denominations all of a sudden because they supposedly believed that Jesus was going to come back in the 1880s, and everybody was standing out on hills or whatever waiting for him to come back so that they could go up in the clouds with him. And that started the Seventh-day Adventists, all these different ones. You had the Mormons started in the 1800s and all of these different Christian denominations. And it really makes you wonder.
It feels like a lot of these denominations do seem to have hints of the truth within them, but it's like they were created to limit people going much further or finding out much more. I think like the Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, they believe in something similar to what we believe in some kind of sense, but it's highly cultish. And if you become a part of it, they control every aspect of your life, and that puts people off wanting to know what they believe. For example, in Mormonism, they believe Jesus walked the Americas, for example, and a lot of other wild stuff, which is just completely biblical as well. On top of that, but they have these hints of the idea that there was a past where Jesus was walking the whole earth and going to these places, hinting at the millennial kingdom and this reign, a physical reign of some kind. But again, it seems like all these factions also are just completely mixed in with a huge, gross cult-like mentality or lie involved with it as well, just pushing people away, but just with all little hints of the truth. And it's, again, as somebody who wasn't raised with any denomination, I find I can look at this holistic image, and it's a terrifying image, actually. Christendom as like a fractured group is chaos. It's all over the place.
It is.
There's
It
no
absolutely
consensus.
is. And after uh, trying to become part of the church after marrying a preacher's son, and we've been kicked out of 2 churches, literally, because we keep digging, and I've always done research. Research is just, I can't stop. I'm incapable of stopping. And you question things, you research things, and you try to live the way you believe God wants you to live according to the convictions He's given you. And that bothers, they don't want to have to question things. They want to be able to sit in their little doctrinal beliefs and, whatever they are, and be comfortable in that, and not even know why they're doing it half the time, and yeah.
I get a lot of comments from people who are telling me these stories. Like I'm trying to tell my pastor these things. I'm trying to talk with them, and the church is just they're like kicking me out. They refuse to speak with me. They're shutting me down. They're calling me crazy. I had one person who came on my last live show. He was like, "Can you debate my pastor for me? Can you just come and tell him these things?" Because I tried to tell him, about these concepts, and he just laughed me out of the room and then looked at me like I was insane. And it's sad to hear these things. Again, when I became a Christian at first, before I knew anything like this millennialist stuff, I did try and get into churches. I tried some local ones in the area, and I didn't really understand about denominations or what type of church is different from another. I was naive then, baby Christian type of thing. Just trying to find a community of some kind, people that I could talk to who believe that Jesus Christ is who he says he was. That's all I wanted, some fellowship, But I went to these churches, and it felt more like just a community meeting every Sunday where they just have some tea and coffee and chat to each other at the end of it. And I don't feel like there's anything there of value for me, really. And these
They're
people
glorified country clubs anymore, for the
yeah,
most part. There's a few good ones. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a few good ones. There's some good pastors. And if you're a baby Christian and you need that accountability, if you're trying to get, out of addiction or anything like that, and you need the fellowship and the accountability to help keep you on the path, then by all means, you do what you need to do. But we've just got our door open, and we have we have a ministry to the unchurched in our community. So they know that they can come out here drunk, and I'm okay. I put on a pot of coffee and we visit, and if they've got questions, then we do our best, and that's the way it should be. And if we're the remnant, then that's how it's going to be. You know what I'm saying? And I like the way we're building communities with these channels and stuff where people don't feel so isolated where they're at, because most everybody does feel pretty isolated where they're at. Having that community fellowship sounds really good, but in this day and age, God's given us the internet for a reason.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I really do love my church. I love the people there. There is a genuine community there, people who actually do life together, who help one another out, who interact outside of church and in church, and will actually do things for the community and genuinely care about the community. With that being said, though, I don't really share my views there because I'm afraid of what they're going to think. And in fact, my daughter's boyfriend, he actually does believe in biblical cosmology, and he is a deacon at our church. And he mentioned it to some people at church that I also believe it. I'm like, why did you tell them? Because I'm like, I'm not ready for that yet, because I'm just at the point where I'm like, it's so nice. This is the first church where I've actually felt an actual community, and I haven't even been there 3 years yet. So I wasn't ready to start kind of pushing the envelope yet. So I'm like, why did you do that? That was for me to say. So yeah, so while I do have to say that when it comes to, communities, yes, but I think that it is very, very hard to find people that are open to topics like what we're talking about. And I'm glad that my daughter's boyfriend is open to at least that. I don't know what else. I haven't really sat down and said anything to him yet, but they're out there, and it's just a matter of finding them.
I think in America you've got more of a choice, and you will have more so. In England, it's a very different situation for churches around here. Most of them are predominantly subsidiaries of the Roman Catholic Church. Anglican more than anything, which is like Catholicism light. And you find most of the Anglican churches they have are trying to be hip and cool and don't really talk about the fact that they're actually Catholic in doctrine and that the Holy Roman Catholic Church takes precedence over everything. It's in there if you look on the websites and you search for it. It's all there. But even then, what they discuss even in like, let's say, the Protestant churches or the Church of England and these places, it's all milk. It's none of it's meat. They don't. It's just all love, happiness, love Jesus, which is great. And then that's it. Sing a few songs and go home. And that's it. Just every Sunday they just do that. And it's kind of, this is nothing. You guys, you have no idea what's going on, do you? I'm looking at them and say, you haven't got a clue. You literally, this is, as great as it is that, you have a belief in Jesus, you have no idea what's happening in the world. Like you have, and they don't care. They don't want to know. And, when it came to things like, that event we're not allowed to talk about from 2020 that affected the whole world, they were all complicit with whatever the government said to do. They were all, they're just, I don't know, I wouldn't call them a real, I know it's hard to say, and again, some lovely people, I met some lovely people, but I wouldn't call them a church. I don't know what that is exactly. In America, it sounds like what you have is way different. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like,
there are some churches like that here. There are a lot of churches like that here. I would say most of them. The one that I grew up at was very, very Catholic, but by a Protestant name. So I didn't go to a Catholic church, but yes, it was very much like a Catholic church. The one that I'm at now, though, not like that in the slightest. In fact, my pastor has talked about Genesis 6 and who the Nephilim really were. And he's even brought up the gap theory. From between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. So he does talk about things that most other pastors won't touch. Just he hasn't gotten as deep as I would like that he would have, but he's definitely done far more than any of the other churches that I've ever been at. So I mean, they're out there, and I think that in many cases they just have to maybe become not afraid. I think some pastors are just afraid because of what their congregations will think. But, we need to just encourage them that, the truth, that's more important than what the congregations think. So
I think some of it is the 501c3 because they want to keep their funding and then, being afraid of what to say to keep pews warm. And I think that's a lot of it, but it's also convenient for them as well. I mean, truthy churches out here are very few and far between, and some families will drive a long way to go, a 2, 3, 4 hours drive to go to a church where they are with like-minded people. And in most of the churches out here, if you look, they've pled fealty, even like the Holy Roller stuff, the full gospel movement. They went to the Vatican and pled fealty to the Pope.
Oh,
in the early 2000s, yes, they did. And Kenneth Copeland was one of the ones that went. Yes,
wolves in sheep's clothing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, in light of the millennial kingdom theory, I've heard a lot of people telling me now this is all just evidence that the Roman Catholic Church is the one true church and you should be following it because if you believe that
I've got Catholic friends who absolutely admit that there are issues with the present Pope and things going on in the church. And I totally believe they're as Christian as I am. They're in the Word. They love the Lord. It's not up to me to say where you go or where you don't go, and how you do that. As long as you are working on your relationship with Him, that's what's important, and Yeah, it's, oh my goodness. I mean, we could probably go on and on that one. We probably could.
Yeah, well, I'm not here to bash Catholics.
Oh,
My
right.
my grandma's a Catholic. You know, I went to some Catholic churches when I was a child. I get it, you know, and these are generally good people. They're not like out to deceive or anything, and I get that, you know, and everyone's got their own way of doing these things. And as a non-denominational, I'm not here to pass judgment onto anything like that. But what I'm saying, in light of this millennial kingdom theory, there does seem to be actually some validity to the church as it used to be, the true apostolic succession of the millennial reign, where the saints would have been around, perhaps in cathedrals, if you want to go that far. So people theorize some of them aren't, some of them are. Maybe the Gothic cathedrals were the ones from the millennial reign or something like that. I don't know. I've heard many other theories, but it may explain practices like why they pray to saints, which to us sounds absurd because they're dead and you're supposed to go straight through Jesus. You don't need to pray to dead people like saints, for example. But if the saints were actually around and are not dead, but actually in the camp of saints currently alive on earth, maybe there is something to this
There
Catholic
had
Church,
to have
you know.
been some kind of governmental authority and situation. You know, saints would have been like maybe lords or
Yeah.
representatives at the time, and maybe they weren't actually praying to them during that time, but would go to them. You
Mm.
know, so while he was actually here reigning, I'm sure there was some kind of an
Mm.
authoritarian, you know, system that we don't know about.
Mm.
And it would have been up to Satan to twist that up and turn it into something wrong.
Which is what we
Right.
have today, which is this weird, horrible thing today, which I wouldn't call Christianity necessarily. I mean, they've changed the Ten Commandments first of all. To me, that's a huge red flag. That's just to add idol worship in there and make it okay, you know. And
Right.
so what I'm saying today isn't it. I'm not saying the Catholic
Right.
Church today is the one
Exactly.
true church. I am not saying that. I'm
Right.
saying these are squatters in an infrastructure which may have actually been a part of the original church
Right.
during the millennial
And
period,
I've
right?
Yeah.
You know,
struggled with like the images, you know, and okay, during the millennial reign, I mean, in the tabernacle, he said in the Ten Commandments not to make images, right? And but in the tabernacle, we've got the images on the mercy seat of the angels, and then he told them to embroider angels on the curtains and things like that. So I'm like, what was the actual precedent for that? And are the statues and things that are actually like inlaid in buildings and things, was that more of a reference? You know, I can see where some of the carvings maybe are like a library, like it's telling a story. Definitely in India where there's carvings on things, you know, that's like a library. It's telling a story. Um, so was it something like that, or were some of those, and very likely some of those added later to
I think it's a bit of both from what I've seen.
probably
I've seen in real time, you know, I went to Lincoln Cathedral not that long ago, and just next to the cathedral are the masons who are constantly renovating and resculpting and replacing the stones, carving out new ones, you know, and you can see them. You can see brand new, fresh dragons that they've created with tongues sticking out with monster demons on the end. And you can tell that was made maybe a year ago. You just look at it compared to the stone right next to it, which clearly has like 300 years worth of weathering on it. This is the stark difference. So they're always replacing and updating the cathedral.
that's interesting because here they're just defacing everything.
But,
You know, they tear it down
I think
or
it's
it
that-
has a fire.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that we've had that too. But I've tried to theorize why America had all these fires, but in Europe we only had a few. It wasn't that big of a deal, you know. Everything wasn't burning down. We had London Bridge, which burned down. Which, if you see images of London Bridge, what that thing used to look like, it was not just a bridge; it was a city. It was nuts, right? But
But you
we
know, they picked that up brick by brick, shipped it across the ocean, and brought it over here. We have London Bridge over here. You know,
well, But the thing is, I think because obviously the New World shouldn't have had all these buildings. That's probably why they had to
Right.
burn them all down. But Europe
Yeah.
has this long, rich 1,000-year history, so we can make sense of these buildings a lot more easily. So
And some
it's
of
not a big
that
deal.
maybe when the dragon was released and a third of his minions were thrown down from heaven, maybe that started a bunch of the fires as well. Maybe it's where they landed and started a fire.
Maybe.
I mean,
Maybe. I mean, there's that Nuremberg event, isn't there, in like 1566 or something like that, which was literally a war in heaven above them with orbs flying all over the place and all sorts
yeah,
of insane things. Who knows what's happened throughout the past in the
yeah.
histories,
And if
you know?
if they smunched 300 years in there, if 1566 and 1766 were actually the same year, and they, or 1866, something like that, if they added a time period and stretched that out, we know that Egyptologists have done that for Egypt. Patterns of Evidence did a really good job of showing how they stretched the timeline for Egypt. So who's to say they haven't done it?
Oh, they definitely have.
And so thinking of you were saying about when the angels fell, and you would just mention the year 1866. That's the year that happened that they call it the night the stars fell, and that happened over the United States. So it's just, and then the fires happened in the 1800s. You have this event in 1866 called the night the stars fell, when all of these supposed just like lights are in the sky, and people thought it was the end of the world. Like they actually thought it was the end. And so that's an interesting concept. I never thought of that, of it being ignited, the fires being ignited, so to speak, from that. That's a neat theory.
It would certainly create enough force, wouldn't it? Something falling from heaven, I suppose, enough of an impact perhaps to start fires. I'm always amazed. I don't know. I remember years ago there was people talk about these huge stone spheres that are just all over the earth in like mass, just loads of them together in random places, and they've got the story. Well, that's weathering over thousands of years of water erosion, creating perfect stone spheres just in the middle of forests and on beachfronts and stuff. And you have to wonder, you have these stories of stars just falling out of the sky. It's kind of, are these what's left of them? these balls all over the place, and I don't know. That's just a wild speculative theory there. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's kind of what we have to do with this theory. We have to try and look at these things from the past, like these stone balls I learned about 7 years ago, and now look at it through this lens. It's like, well, this actually could explain what these things are that are come crashing down at some point, and maybe these were the stars. Maybe the stars we see today are only just a fraction of what was originally there.
Yeah.
And it was actually way more than we can understand. And this is another thing. If these events have happened, and a third of the stars have already fallen, through the whole tribulation event, we can't actually trust the signs in the heavens we see today and apply them to the biblical narrative necessarily, because first of all, wandering planets are not supposed to be wandering. So how can we trust where they're going to be as any sign from God whatsoever? When Saturn's in a specific star sign or something like that. Well, the wandering stars have a punishment for what they're doing. They're angels who left their first estate. They're rebellious angels, essentially. You shouldn't be dictating or living your life based on star signs or the pattern of things in the sky currently. And people right now are all hyped up over the coming eclipse, for example, which is on April 8th, which is supposed to go through 7 cities called Nineveh or something like that over America. And people are saying, oh, well, the New Madrid fault line is going to get triggered. There's going to be earthquakes. It's going to be huge disasters. And it's kind of, everyone's saying it's biblical. This is signs of the end. This is signs of tribulation. And I'm thinking, well, what a coincidence they've named all these cities Nineveh, and also they've called it Devil's Comet at the same time as the eclipse. It's kind of, could they not just be naming these things in advance to orchestrate these events that we're calling end time signs of tribulation? I'm
Especially when
rolling
you
here.
consider the people that are making these apps and coming up with these, online stellariums and stuff like that, have got to know the biblical cosmology and understand the Book of Enoch in order to make a app that actually works. So they're lying to you about how how the app is actually laid out in order for that to even line up to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so much. There's so much there.
And whenever we would talk about the Great Deception, like years ago, or when we would think about it, a lot of people always thought that the Great Deception would be focused on like one deception. And I never in my life imagined that the deception would be in everything, like not just one focused thing, but in every single thing around us. We are lied to about everything. And you can't get much of a greater deception than that.
Yeah.
No,
We had no idea how huge this actually would be.
Everything's inverted. Everything that we are taught is just been turned on its head perfectly. You talk about the biblical cosmology, for example, as one of these major waking up points for a lot of us in the truth movement. I saw when that rose, and even when I started to get into that, I have my flat Earth degree. I got it years ago. I did all the research with everybody else. And I graduated, and I felt like I've kind of moved on from that a bit now. My focus isn't on that. A lot of people never left it behind and have kind of hyper focused on it and still obsess over it today. But I kind of moved on from that. That's one deception. Yes, it's real. Let's go on to the rest of it. And you realize we've been lied to about, the shape of everything is inverted. The food they tell us is healthy is actually killing us. They tell us CO2 is bad for us. It's actually what plants need to grow. Everything's kind of just the complete opposite. And now I've been told, oh, well, actually, we're not waiting for tribulation. It's already happened. We're way past that as well. It's kind of just one thing after another. Every institution has just been completely lied to. And you have to wonder as well, is it just, this is a highly Western Christian view I'm giving here. Are people in other cultures, in other countries with different religions also have everything just turned upside down from what they originally believed as well? Are they having the same issues we're having? Are all their histories completely messed up and lies as well? Or do they actually have it all mapped out because they're not? I don't. We have to ask them because I don't speak many other languages, unfortunately. But I bet we're not the only ones. I bet in India they have the same issues that we're having with their histories that just don't make any sense. I bet China's histories don't make any sense whatsoever as well. I bet if we go around and anyone who speaks these languages who's listening, go and ask.
Yeah,
Let me know. Let me know.
That's a good question.
Give me some comments.
I love watching like Pravi Mohan. I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah.
I mean, so close to where we're at on so many things. And it's really enlightening to see all of the stuff that he's bringing up. We do a lot of digging into the old myths and legends around the world and stuff. It's getting to a point where the older stuff, the old folklore and myths and legends are actually making sense from a biblical perspective and laying it out. And it's easier to talk to some of these people now because they're seeing it, and it's like, oh, you can say to them, hey, have you read the book of Enoch? You don't even have to take them directly to the Bible because some people, you have a little not wanting to go there, but it's like, have you read the book of Enoch? Because the book of Enoch talks about a lot of this stuff. You can pull the Norse mythology into it, the Chinese mythology into it, and all of that, and bring it all together. And so I think a lot of this that we're bringing out, it doesn't matter if you started out a Christian or not. All these other religions can see a lot of the same thing if they've got their eyes open. And we've all got the same architecture.
Yeah.
So whereas I know for us, we were taught in Japan, they have a certain kind of architecture. In China, they have a certain kind of architecture. And, in different places. And of course, South America didn't have any architecture. Whenever I grew up, there was nothing but a bunch of savages down there. And
they'll tell you it's colonialism. That's what they like to say. Oh, it's because of colonialism. And then if you look it up, you're like, no, not all of the countries that had this architecture were actually colonized.
Well, so, I know.
What do you say about those?
Yeah, in the homeschooling, at first we thought the monks came over and built a church on anything fun. Okay. Build a church on it. The monks built it. And then I started seeing some of the churches and bridges and things that are in South America. And it's like, how did some monks and conquistadors build that on the side of a cliff over? No. It's like, no, I cannot. No, with donkeys
Just
or
like,
not.
the Star Forts, like the one in California, it's like, oh yeah, that was built by coal miners. What? The Star Fort was built by coal miners. They had these like highly advanced not Freemasonry, but masonry skills, these techniques, but they were coal miners. It's like,
And
come
all of
on.
this
Like,
stuff,
just come
all
on.
of the stuff that the Mormons built within 20 years of arriving in Salt Lake City, they built, oh wow. I mean, they were industrious. They were not only having lots of children by lots of wives, they were industrious in the process. I mean, they had way more energy than I've got.
Yes. So, they were all architects and masons. Every last one of them.
Every last one of them. Yeah.
Just bringing it back here to something else I actually want to talk to you about, Shelly. So there was a huge expose of this. I don't want to call it preterism. Okay, I feel like personally, and I think you can agree with me, preterism is the straw man they're attacking to debunk what we're trying to say. And I don't think necessarily what this is preterism as it's classically understood. I think most preterists don't even believe in a physical kingdom, really, and amillennialists kind of fall slightly into the preterist worldview a little bit, and the lines are blurred. But the argument always is, oh well, preterism was created by a Jesuit, and you covered this, and you did a brilliant job. And as soon as I heard that argument, I was like, that's a pretty weak argument on many levels. My first one is, just because a Jesuit formalized the concept doesn't mean he created the idea that Christ has already come and ruled. He's just somebody who said it, who happens to also be a Jesuit. I mean, I believed, and my first response was, no, the person who created this was Jesus when he said, this generation will not pass away before all these things come to pass. It was when Jesus said repeatedly, I come quickly, the time is at hand, seal not the message in these scrolls, go and tell everyone, John, because it's serious, I'm about to come back now. So when Jesus himself created this concept and gave the idea to us, not some Jesuits in the 1600s.
And that particular thing was not they weren't particular broadcast was not the norm. When you've got somebody who has an extensive library like they do and at their fingertips and usually preaches scripture, and just brings these other things in for context, but starts with the extensive library. And I didn't watch the whole episode because I got frustrated, but I don't know if there were any scriptures actually presented, or I know people in the comments were trying to present scripture and they were being ignored. That's not the norm for those people. And I feel like they've probably been heckled. And some people have been given a certain message, and we don't need to push another message on. It's like you were saying about the biblical cosmology. You've already got your diploma and you're moving on, right? And some people aren't there yet. They're starting at a different place. And when we're all kind of starting at different places, we've got different perspectives and stuff that I can appreciate the knowledge that those people have, but obviously they weren't on their game for that broadcast. And I'm going to pray for them. I have been, because we can all get off on a tangent sometimes.
It wasn't just them I hear it a lot. The go-to put down of this theory is you're a praetorist. Praetorism was created by a Jesuit. This is all just the product of satanic thinking. This is satanic doctrine because of the Jesuit argument. And again, for what they did, fair enough. That's their knee-jerk reaction opinion. I'm not really focused on any particular channel here. I'm just saying those who make this argument. I'm saying it's not a very strong argument. Like, I didn't get to my opinion on this matter because of what Jesuits wrote. I got to my opinion on the matter by reading Revelation 7 and then backtracking back through the Gospels and reading Jesus' words for what he actually said. That's how I got to the opinion, not through the obscure writings of a very old group of specific people.
I mean, yeah, we run into other YouTube channels that give different perspectives, and sometimes that's your jumping off point to, oh my goodness, I need to study this because I haven't seen this perspective.
Yeah.
But who's going in specifically looking at Jesuit stuff to try to find,
I find that it's kind of comical because it's almost like, even back then in the 1500s or so, or whenever the Jesuits supposedly came up with both preterism and futurism, which they tend to leave out because many of the people calling preterism, like, the doctrine of demons and stuff, they're actually futurists, and they're kind of leaving out the part that Jesuits also supposedly created futurism too. But it's kind of like, it's almost like a childish game. Nowadays they say, oh, well, flat Earth was created by the CIA. And it's like, well, no, it wasn't, because look at the cosmology of all of these other ancient civilizations. And just like what with Paul was saying, well, preterism was created by the Jesuits. No, it wasn't. It was Jesus in God's word. So they try to discount things by attaching labels to them, or these stigmas, by saying that, oh, well, this group created that group created that. Not because it actually has any merit, but because they know that a lot of people, once they hear that, will be like, oh, no, I'm not going to listen to it then. Because even in my comments, like, oh, well, if it was created by the Jesuits, then I'm definitely not going to pay attention to it. And I'm like, well, that's the thing, though. First of all, you don't know if it was actually created by the Jesuits, because they lie about everything now. I'm certain that they were lying about a lot then too, and again, like he said, foundationally, where did it begin? Not the Jesuits. So
I get a lot of comments coming in lately after what they did, and it's like, you should probably know this. You can hear the smugness in the voice. Like, you do know the Jesuits came up with this, right? You should go and watch this video. They lay it out very clear.
And it was kind emailed to me and everything.
Yeah. And it's
like
kind of
people throwing around the esoteric word. Oh, you're being esoteric. You're and it's like, you don't even know what esoteric means.
No. I got a very interesting email a couple of days ago. I'm going to have to... I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very long and convoluted, but I'm going to get it up just so I can get the gist of what this is. But this was an odd one, and I've not had one like this before. I'm not going to name any names here of who sent it, but the title was odd. Everything about this is just strange. You'll agree with me once I kind of get into this, but where is the title of this one? Right, so they've titled it Expanding Horizons Beyond Gatekeepers and Rediscovering History. That's what they've titled this email. And then they says, I've been following your channels for a while because of the Demons Are Clowns theme. However, I've also been paying attention to the shift you're making into other topics, such as lost history and the associated notion that the millennial reign may have already occurred. I was already somewhat familiar with these topics before they appeared on your channel. Primarily, I want to offer you a warning and some broadening of your horizons, as I have a strong feeling that you're currently getting sidetracked and gathering people around you who want to keep you in a circle. I call them gatekeepers, in quotes. On one hand, you've indeed found something, but unfortunately, it's likely only half the truth. Doesn't it strike you as odd that all these discoveries about lost history, strange occurrences in the past, that we hadn't heard of until a few years ago, including photographic material that seems technologically ahead of its time, are suddenly coming to light? Suddenly everything comes out and people are rushing to piece it all together into real history. The information you have about our past covers even more topics which you're leaving out. Since the original material spreading into this also includes flat earth, mountains or trees, and we live in a previous exploited world and that the moon is a map of our world, etc. Now to the point of why I'm writing you all this. I think you should broaden your horizon, which might give you slightly different perspective on everything, and not waste your time in streams going around in circles with gatekeepers, as it leads nowhere. You've read your Bible, blah 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 blah, and it sends me 2 random links to videos that I cannot understand, that make no sense, with some reference to Breaking Bad or something like that. And it's just, it's the condescending tone in these emails I get that I can't stand the most. Like, Paul, you need to broaden your horizons. You're clearly just swimming around with gatekeepers. You're just falling for the stupidity around you. And you've got some good stuff. I like what you're doing. This is all right over here. But you really should just focus more on this instead, and leave that stupid stuff behind. It's kind of pardon my phrase, who the hell are you? Like, to tell me what I can and cannot think about, and to assume that I have fallen for some stupid trap, and that people are corralling me into a weird circle to control me. And it's like, you do realize I'm the one who's reached out to these people myself to talk with them. We're just human beings having conversations here, and I don't know.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one, because I get emails and comments like that all the time. And Donita knows all about them. And it's so frustrating to me. The other day, I got some kind of comment saying that I've been following your channel for some time and I really enjoy your videos, but I think that you're starting to research too many things now and you are getting yourself confused.
Yeah.
And it was basically saying that if I stop looking into all these things, I will find peace. And I'm like, I will find peace by being ignorant and not knowing, like by believing lies? How is that? That's not true peace. The word of God is all about truth. So how am I going to find peace by just ignoring things? And it's just comments like that I'm like, wow. And yeah, and the emails telling me what I should and should not post about. And yeah, I wonder if it's the same people going to.
It must be, because I get like at least maybe 10 of these a month, and they're always along that same line. I really like what you're doing here, but shut up about this. That's basically what it's always. And sometimes it's the other way around. It's like, oh, I really like the Millennial Kingdom stuff, but that clown stuff's insane. You need to leave that behind. It's kind of,
yeah.
I can't win. I can't
Pay
please
attention
anybody.
to the comments that say that they like a variety.
Well, yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not looking to be a one-trick pony. I like to talk about a lot of things.
Variety is the spice of life, and we're learning.
Exactly.
So you're going to be learning new things, and that's the idea. I don't ever want to become stagnant.
Yeah.
And just say, okay, I've learned it all. I'm done. That I don't ever want to be to that point. Even in heaven, I'm expecting to. I want to be a librarian.
Oh yeah.
There's such a thing, if I can sweep the floors of the library or do the dusting or whatever, I know some people don't believe there'll be dust in heaven. So anyway, I just want a job in there. That's what I want, because I want to keep learning all the time.
And that there was another comment that I had that was just listing how I had gone astray and I was confused about this thing and I was doing this wrong and I was on the wrong place. And then it ended, the comment was saying, but you're doing a really good job and I enjoy your channel. And I'm like, how do I even respond to that?
It's like gaslighting you, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm baffled. I don't usually respond. I just don't respond because I don't know what to say. I mean, to a comment like that as well. I mean, I have to say, look, I've been doing the clown thing for like 8 years, okay, and I'm still going now. I've just been talking about this topic for 6 months. I am not finished. Okay, yeah. Don't tell me that's enough of that. Leave it alone. It's like I'm probably gonna be doing this for another 10 years, as well as everything else. You don't just stop.
Yeah.
Like, there's no stopping point here. Once you start a ball rolling,
And I don't think
just
people
keeps.
understand in the slightest being a creator on YouTube, having a blog, whatever, is not an easy thing. It's a job in and of its own. And, even if you're not editing, because I hate editing, um, you're just posting your stuff. It takes energy to do this. It takes a lot, and just coming up with thumbnails and the descriptions. I can write a whole book, but sitting there trying to come up with a decent title and description will take me a day, just about. It's the pits. So,
and the research is
the research
endless.
takes forever.
So
Yeah.
time consuming. It's like,
Yeah.
it feels like that's all you're doing, and then that's all you have on your mind, and it's just
Mhm.
it doesn't end.
Yeah. Yeah. And then life on top of that. And so it just, pray for us, people. We definitely aren't sitting here acting like I'm not trying to act like I've got it all together. I know neither one of you are. We're learning, and we're sharing what we're learning with you. If you don't like something, move on. I've tried to tell people, if you don't like me eating because I'm trying to keep my blood sugar going. So I'm usually eating, and I make noises, and we've got dogs in the background. This is real life here. And I do the best I can to put on, a semi-professional production, but this is, and then you got the promo. Are you promoting yourself? Promoting yourself much? And I'm like, I've got a new book out. I'm going to promote it. Yes, I am. Some people are interested, and I'm going to tell people about it. And if you want to buy it, great. If you don't, fine. You don't need to leave a comment about it. If you don't want to watch the video, don't watch the video.
It's like they don't understand that you can scroll past a video. You don't have to click on it just because it's there in front of you. If you don't like what the subject is, go watch something else. And I'm totally fine with that.
I mean, are these same people, Shelly? I mean, almost every other video that you do is a homeschooling video. And I know not all of your followers are homeschoolers. Are they? And I'm past the homeschooling years, so I don't watch your homeschooling videos usually. I skip past the ones that I'm not interested in.
Yeah. And as a creator, and as both of you are creators, we're totally fine with that. We don't expect, all of our subscribers to watch every single one of our videos. I'm subscribed to hundreds of channels. There's no way I could watch every single one of their videos. So I have to be very, very picky and choose specifically the things that interest me. And if the topic that I'm covering that day is something like, you don't need to leave a comment about it. Just go watch something else on another channel. It's fine too. It doesn't have to be on my channel. Just go find something that does.
Whatever happened to the old adage, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all?
Like from Bambi. Yeah, that was in Bambi.
I don't mind some constructive criticism. I have had some people give me admonishment that I deserved, and I'm okay with that. And I've even made videos about that. And I'm okay with, legitimate admonishment and constructive criticism. I'm okay with that. But if you're just telling me that my hair looks funny today or whatever, move on.
But it's odd. I find most of my criticism isn't necessarily always what I'm talking about. It is the petty, weird things like, oh, is this another re-upload? I swear I watched this last week. Why are you doing? Oh, you're promoting your book again? These type of things. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, I'm gonna shill my own book on my own YouTube channel. Yeah, that's gonna happen. Yes, I'm gonna cut 20-minute segments from 2-hour long talks and release them in shorter versions because not everyone watches 2-hour long talks. Right. I'm allowed to do that on my channel, but it's got to get these people who kind of dictate to you how you should be doing things. And, they don't understand, as you were saying. I actually have a lot going on behind the scenes. I can't make a new video every single day. That's just fresh content. Because I have a serious health problem that I'm dealing with, that I'm currently getting treatment for. It's kind of... we have lives, and it's easier for me to re-upload a segment of a larger show than it is to spend 10 hours creating a brand new video with images and recording the audio, the editing process to make 5 minutes worth of something fresh with images can take like 2 hours just for 5 minutes, you know, and these
Yeah.
are like half an hour long things. I don't think they quite understand. They think it's easy. I think we have this assumption that what we do is just, oh, you just press play and say some stuff and upload it. There's nothing to it, right? To make the thumbnail for this talk alone, because there's no direct topic I thought we were going to be talking about, I spent like a good hour making just a thumbnail just before going live, and it's kind of they don't see that side of things. They don't kind of understand the choices we have to make. And someone's in my comments made me laugh here. They said, because I have a weekly show called the Truth of Therapy Sessions, and they've just said this is a real Truth of Therapy session, what we're doing right now, and I thought that was quite funny. We're just
Good. Yes. Honestly, we need it, right? We need it. We are all dealing with things, and
Yeah, it's nice getting to do it face to face, because usually I'm just messaging Donita complaining. It's just,
I love having friends all over the world that are sharpening me and challenging me, and I can wake up in the morning with a prayer request or sharing a prayer request with them, you know, that we can get past the tin hats and you know, and enjoy it. This is supposed to be an adventurous journey. Don't get tangled up in the weeds here, you know. Enjoy the journey and pick and choose the things that you can handle chewing on, and spit out the bones and keep walking if that's what you need to do. And you know, if God has, like I said, if God has given you something specific that you need to be concentrating on, and you can only do bits and pieces of this, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm a very politically active person, and for several years in my life, I there was a time when I had 3 in diapers and was taking care of my father-in-law who had dementia, on top of my own health problems. And I could not be politically active at that point in time. And there's very little on my blog from that period of time. I had to concentrate on what God gave me as a priority during that time. And we all, you know, need to do that. We are in a broken world. No matter where we are in the timeline, we are in a broken world, and we've got a lot against us right now, you know. And we need to be working together and praying for each other and helping each other out instead of judging every little thing.
Mhm.
You know.
Amen.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Yeah. Just one thing I want to talk with you guys about, actually, just a bit of a segue now.
Okay.
Just if you've got the time, but I saw you two made a video talking about, was it RH negative? And you were kind of trying to pass that idea out, and people are asking me about this all the time.
We
And I'm
did
not gonna-
two, actually. We did one on Shelly's channel, and we did a follow-up answering some questions on mine as well.
Yeah, because for me, blood has actually become quite an interesting, for my own life. Like, it's not something I've really ever thought about until recently, but I have to get weekly venisections right now, where they take a bag of blood out of me every week to get my iron level down, because my ferritin was at like organ damaging high levels.
Wow.
And I have a genetic condition now called hemochromatosis, where I don't process iron like normal people. It just accumulates, and then it gets stored in my heart and my liver, and then it becomes toxic. And the only way to cure it, well, not cure, it's never going to get cured, but the only way to handle it is to drain your blood regularly to keep the iron down, because you need to use iron to make new red blood cells. So it uses it. You know, if you take the blood out, make new red blood cells, brings your iron levels down because they're using it. So that's kind of what I have to do. But I found out I'm O negative. Okay, and I don't know what that means exactly, but I saw you guys were talking about this RH factor. I remember years ago, I mean, I'm talking like 8 years ago when I first started, this was all the rage, this topic, and I've kind of forgot what it was all really about. Can you teach me now, or give me a quick power 10-minute lesson on what's the big deal about this RH negative and the blood type thing?
Go for it, Shelley.
What have you got?
Thanks,
What have you got
Sonia.
about this?
Throw me under the bus. Well, really, the negative aspect just means that it's missing a protein called the rhesus protein, and a lot of people think that the rhesus protein is actually coming from the rhesus monkey, when in fact it's just named after that monkey, but the protein itself has nothing to do with the actual monkey. And so when the blood is missing that protein, it's that it becomes more common for people with Rh negative blood to experience different things, like MTHFR was one of the things. Now, you don't have to be negative to have the MTHFR genetic mutation, but it just means that there are certain certain things that your blood either handles better than Rh positive, or that handles worse. And it's just really on how it handles different things. Now, there's a lot of theories that Rh negative blood is actually the pure blood, the way that it was meant to be, when God created Adam and Eve. And we have no way of actually knowing that. And there's a lot of, just conspiracy theories going around about Rh negative blood just being connected to the Nephilim bloodlines. And some people say that that's where the term blue blood comes from, because if you do actually look into Rh negative blood, it's associated with royal families and noble families. They are very, very careful to continue this bloodline. And so they say that that's where the term blue blood comes from, because they claim that Rh negative blood is higher in copper rather than iron, which you have just proven is not true. And so they're saying that that's why it's called blue bloods, because the copper in the negative blood makes it actually blue. But if you actually look into that, Rh negative blood is not blue, just like Rh positive blood is not blue. So, as for like the medical aspect of it, I'm not really well versed in all of the differences, but I do know that O negative is that's the universal blood, right? Can't that go to anybody?
Yeah, I
I'm
can
pretty sure
donate. I can
donated.
donate to anyone at all, positive or negative. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
If I was O positive, I can only donate to all the positives,
yeah,
and that's how it works basically. And then when you start getting into other blood types, it gets really complicated who you can and can't donate to. But me personally, anyone can take my blood. I can't take anybody's though.
hmm
I have to have O negative. I think that's how it
yeah,
works. If I needed the same thing, but again, I don't hold much weight to the whole it's in the blood thing and your blood
yeah,
type matters and it's important, especially when it comes to salvation. I don't think
yeah. Oh
it
no,
matters
yeah,
at all, and
absolutely.
I think I think it sets dangerous precedents when people start going down that route. It's like, well, you've got Nephilim blood, so you're an evil person, and
Yeah,
how does that stop a crazy person from getting to the logical conclusion of, well, I need to kill everybody with RH then because they're all
yeah.
Nephilim,
It's like a Holocaust all over again. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think we're not saved by our blood. That's not, and I think it's irrelevant now.
yeah,
And getting on the Nephilim topic, because I love that topic too. It's what half my book is about. I think you could argue we're probably all a little bit in some way corrupted now.
Yeah.
In some way, it's
Oh yeah,
so long far into the future, so much breeding and mixing, and that's
At this
why.
point, we probably all have Abraham blood, and we probably all have some Raphael blood.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying we do. I don't know, but it's likely.
I'm pretty sure all of us Americans, because we're all Heinz 57 sauce, and we got a lot of everything going on over here.
Oh, exactly. It's been so long now that I think you would be hard pressed to find a pure Adamic human. Let's say, I think you would
yeah,
be really hard pressed, and that's why it doesn't matter. Like that's why Jesus came. It's to be born again. I think is a very literal thing. I think it means a new body, and everything else. It's because this world is fallen, including your body. There's nothing
yeah,
you can do about that, and it's about what's in the heart. It's about it's a spirit thing. It's a Holy
We've got
Spirit soul
so
thing.
many factors against us right now. Just so many.
Yeah.
I mean, between the air and what may or may not be sprayed, all those ice crystals.
Yeah, all
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and then our food, and we've got so many things against us. I know I'm dealing with lupus, and Shelly and
I'm on blood thinners.
all
Yeah.
kinds of issues that we've got. And of course, you got the red hair and the green eyes and all the, other things going on. And it was a very interesting study. We came to absolutely no conclusions.
No, it was just
None.
an exploration.
Yeah,
And
we
I
don't
always
have
say that
any
though. That's
answers.
why my series is called Question the Narrative, because I'm asking questions.
I,
I
I
don't think
did
I've ever
come up.
come to a solid conclusion on anything.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
come up with some like dietary things that might help, some supplements that might help various issues, and some that our family is trying. The methylated B12, we're trying that. Um, a lot of people don't realize that we're usually mineral deficient in our lives today. We're not getting enough minerals from our foods, so I definitely usually our family takes colloidal minerals on a regular basis and, things like that. But yeah, we're falling apart. I'm looking forward to the new heavens and the new earth. And that's the big reason that I am not a full preterist, is because I feel like we're sitting on a bunch of dead things. And I don't see that as a new earth. And I want a legit. I have no doubt that there's a spiritual new heaven and new earth aspect to that, but I'm looking for an actual new heaven and new earth where we can kind of go back and forth in between. And
It's funny because that is actually a common rebuttal I always get. It's kind of like, there's no way Jesus has come back. This is not the new heaven or new earth. It's completely corrupt and evil and terrible. And it's kind of, and again, skipping over Revelations 27 again. What about that short season? You're just going to miss that short season out? Like, yes, of course, this is not the new heaven and new earth. Of course it's not. Like, this is probably one of the most horrible times to be alive, and there's been worse prior to us as well, which we have histories for. This is, by that I mean, past 2,000 years has been a horrible time to be alive, not just us in the past 60 years, which has been pretty bad as well, but that argument I've heard quite a lot, and yes, there will be a new heaven and a new earth at the end of all of this, and like
That's because a lot of preterists, they do think that we are living on the new earth right now. So they already think that all of that is over with. And to preterists, the short season is really just a very, very short amount of time, like barely worth mentioning. It's just when Satan was released and, the battle of Gog and Magog was fought and they surrounded the camp of the saints, but they don't look at it as an extended period of time. I was watching, now this was an millennialist YouTube channel, and he was reading through the book of Revelation, and there was another part of Revelation where they used the term a little while, which is actually what the short season is more often called in the translations. I've rarely seen it actually say short season. It usually says that Satan was released for a little while. And so in that one, when it came to the earlier time that phrase was used, it was actually referring to an event that only took about 2 years time. So when they're just not really giving much thought to the short season actually being like 250 plus years that a lot of us are thinking that it could be. And it's also just because of the way that they're reading Revelation, because it says I think it's Revelation 1:1 that these things must happen quickly. And so they're looking at it as all of Revelation must happen quickly, including Revelation 20, 21, 22, that it all must have happened right after Jesus was crucified, just a very short period of time. And so to me, that was very compelling. I was like, wow, it really does says these things must happen quickly. And it has all of Revelation. But then if you actually factor in that it does say 1,000 years in Revelation 20. So to me, that would kind of mean that it already says these things must happen quickly, but then there's going to come a point where there's going to be the millennial kingdom, which is 1,000 years. Now, the preterists usually don't take that literally, but if you take that literally, then that means that not all of Revelation has to be completed quickly. I hope that I'm making sense.
No, that does make sense.
But that's why a lot of them are saying that we're already on the new heavens and new earth, because a lot of preterists believe that has all already been finished. The white throne judgment, everything is already ended.
Hmm.
Which, if you are a full preterist and you've made it this long, Shelly and I would like to have somebody, if you're familiar with the mud flood, the Tatarian stuff, the biblical cosmology, and you would like to, get on an interview with us, we would love to have you on and have a discussion about this stuff.
Yeah, because we would be coming at it from a very, friendly way, because I find the whole thing extremely interesting.
We
I'm
will
reading a
be
book on full
respectful.
preterism right now. So yeah, I was there to defend it when everyone else was bashing it. So just keep that in mind, that this would be a
Shelly
very
and I have
friendly.
actually gone round and round. This is proof that you can disagree on things and toss things back and forth. And I love a good debate. I absolutely love a good debate. And yeah, I'm all for let's get on here and let's discuss this stuff.
Yeah.
I think there is a popular YouTuber going around right now who is an amillennialist. Maybe that's who you were talking about. I can't remember his name. I'm blanking
Bruce
right
Gore,
now.
is it Bruce Gore?
It
Because that's
might
who
be.
I was talking about.
It might be. Is he quite a young lad? I think
Oh
he's in
no,
his
this is
thirties.
he's an older man, and I think his videos are from like several years ago. So
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. I think there are people out there who have always been like this. Is what I'm saying. Just because we're suddenly talking about this odd little season concept, there are people who are these amillennialists who have already had this worldview that we're living already in it, or like you said, it's hard to tell what they believe or where they think we are in a timeline. To be honest, every time I try and listen to them, because it is this nebulous time frame of the church age they talk about, and this a
I
thousand
can
years.
see where somebody believes that we're in the new heavens and new earth and everything's already happened if they're not familiar with what's been brought out about the Tatarian Empire and the mud floods and the petrified trees.
well, the
And-
preterists, though, they kind of look at it more as a spiritual new earth. So
right.
to
And
them, it really, I don't think that the mud flood and everything would make much of a difference, because when they are seeing the new earth, they just mean that we have the new covenant now. We are away. Yeah. So that's how they see it. So I don't know that the mud flood, I could be wrong, but I don't know that the mud flood and Tartaria and everything would have much of an effect on them, because they just really see the new earth as being, we are in the new covenant now, and that's what the new earth is.
yeah. I just wouldn't want to personally interview somebody who wasn't really
Aware of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's my big hang up.
Mine is that they think that Satan is already in the lake of fire. I'm like, I don't know. How can you think that?
How can you think that?
Yeah, especially because I've had some, well, and so have you, Donita. I don't know about you, Paul, but we've had some what we'll call supernatural experiences. And so if you have these demonic influences and entities that are still out here now, then how could Satan be thrown in the lake of fire? So that's a question that I would like to ask a full preterist, is how is that? It's not all in our head,
I agree. I mean, I like I said, I am very well aware that DMT jesters still exist, which are the Nephilim disembodied. The Nephilim are still here in disembodied form, as it explains in Enoch. They become wandering spirits that thirst and hunger and cause offenses. They become the demons when they become disembodied. They are definitely still here from personal experience, and they will be destroyed when the heaven and earth is put into the lake of fire.
Yes.
A new heaven and earth. That's when they finally get done for. Along with everything that created them. But until then, we're still dealing with them until that time.
Yeah, and if they're still here, then that means that it hasn't all been completed in my book, because they're still there. And you can't just write it off as being in someone's head when you have multiple people having the same thing happening to them who don't even know each other. And that's what happened in my situation. So that's
it's
like
legal
a lot of it. I'm like, this
makes in Oklahoma.
What?
It's legal to hunt Bigfoot in Oklahoma.
That's so cool.
What? How do you explain that? How do you explain that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, and so for me, I found the whole full preterism thing very, very interesting, because there are a lot of very compelling verses and passages that they use. And so for Donita, it was the new heavens and the new earth that are really kind of like, nope, that's what's keeping her mainly away, not the only thing. And for me, it's Satan being thrown in the lake of fire. I'm like, nope, I can't, I haven't found an explanation that satisfies me about how that could possibly be the case. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll see if anyone could have an answer for that. But I'm like, oh, well, maybe. But so far, no, that's the one thing I'm like, no, I can't go full preterist for that reason.
hmm hmm Well, it does feel like I said, in this day and age now, with the information sharing capacity we have at our fingertips, we're seeing more evidences previous people who had similar worldviews didn't have to justify why they thought the millennial kingdom had come. So you get these people with their best guess coming up with concepts like preterism or amillennialism because they don't know about, let's say, the Tartarian histories or these evidences for a global culture and architecture. These things we can start to see now because we have Google Earth, where we literally can go anywhere and look at any building in 3D immediately,
Yeah.
and we can make patterns now and recognize things they just did not have the capacity to do at a previous time where the technology was lacking. So this is why I say our foundations for getting to these conclusions, I think, are a lot stronger and more weighty than it was in the past, where it was all up for debate. And I feel
Yeah.
like, again, a lot of these people who still have these traditional views of, let's say, full preterism, their justifications now are going to start to look a lot weaker compared to the type of information we're bringing to the table. And it's not their fault. It's not malevolence on their behalf.
No.
It's ignorance. I like to assume stupidity before evil. Most of the time, or a lack of knowledge before intentional to
It's
deceive.
easy to do that whenever you can admit your own ignorance and stupidity through the years, leading up to. And the more I learn, the less I realize I know. So
I said that too. I said it's like the more things that I learn, the more confused I get because it's
Yeah.
like as soon as you think you have something figured out, you learn something new that flies in the face of what you thought you had figured out, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm back to square one.
Yeah, you get one rabbit hole taken care of, and there's 5 more going in different directions. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think these people who you want to get on, for example, they probably know the word really well. They're probably very well educated in the Bible, which is great. We actually need people like that to then see what we've got and say, "What do you think of this?" So then they can apply that wealth of knowledge they've got about the Bible and the Word and Scripture to what they're seeing, and they can probably give us insights we just probably won't be able to get from our ignorant views.
Right.
I'm not a biblical scholar or expert. I've admitted
No.
that plenty of times. I'm doing the best I can with what I've got.
Right.
Okay, and I'm not an authority. I don't have a church or a ministry. I've never claimed anything like that, and I'm not a biblical scholar, but I do want people who are to sincerely look at this information and not just outright go, no, you're wrong, that's just heretical nonsense. And
Yeah. And that is one thing that I do appreciate my pastor. As I'm doing my readings, I will text him all the time with questions. And he jokingly, he's like, your questions are always so hard. Why can't you ask me for something from Romans or something like that? And he's very good natured about it. And he will even give me different points of view. He doesn't tell me this is how it is. He'll say, well, some people think this, but you're right. I can see how you're looking at it that way because there are a lot of scholars who also see it your way. So he is very good with that. So I'm constantly bugging him with questions that I have. So, and yeah, I would like to have someone who's open and knowledgeable. Yeah.
Well, I really was not planning on going the whole 2 hours, but this has been a wonderful discussion, and I thank you both for being on here. Do you have any closing thoughts before we close up?
Just that, remember that you can look at things differently from other believers, and it doesn't mean that they are being led by Satan. You just need to remember that the gospel needs to be our core message. It needs to be the foundation of what we believe in. And many of the things that we're searching out now and bickering over, we will not find out this side of heaven. And we need to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. No, I absolutely agree. There's a huge problem I find with know-it-allism, especially in Christianity conspiracy circles. There's a lot of people out there who want to tell you they know 100% what the truth is, and they will shout at you this message and say, if you don't follow what I believe, you're going to hell. And I would just say, if anyone's telling you that, you probably shouldn't be listening to them, because we do not know it all, and there are some things we need to be okay with understanding that we will not know until the very end. Same
Right.
message as you, Shelly. It's a great message, and I stand by it.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you both. And remember, you can make it through the dust storms of life with God's divine help.